So over the last 2 days I've been busy filling every last little gap on my plot with spring plantings. I've got very little on the plot now that's actually going to be harvested in the summer. Almost everything is going to be harvested in spring, and then it's all going to be cleared and replanted for summer. Of course, I'm going to be starting a lot of summer plantings back home in the kitchen garden. It's the kitchen garden where we do a lot of the summer growing. So yeah, I'll just show you around on all the little bits and pieces I've been doing. So I'm preparing this bed for brassicas, and I'm putting mostly kales in here, but in preparing the ground you've got to think about what you're interplanting as well. So in my case today I'm interplanting radish, and in a few weeks time I'll be interplanting beetroot into this bed, and as a result it's not a good idea to put too much nitrogen into the ground, because whilst that's fantastic for the kales, it's terrible for the beetroot and the radish. All you'll get is lots of top growth and no roots. A little bit of bloodfish and bone is fine for everything, so that's what I've sprinkled across the surface, about a handful for each. And what I'm then going to do is I'm only going to amend the holes, and I'm going to put a bit of hoof and horn in all of the holes, because that's a high nitrogen fertiliser, nice slow release, so the kales should love that. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to water half the bed with BioBiz seaweed emulsion and fish emulsion, and half the bed just I'm going to pre-water the holes with nothing, because I want to see whether it makes any difference. Now my theory is that the kales will really like that as an extra boost early in the season, when a lot of the nutrients are not that bioavailable in the soil because it's still so cold. So that'll be a nice little experiment. So I like to cut out the holes with a bulb planter. I like this one that I can hold like this, just saves on the bending down, and less soil disturbance when you do it this way as well. And I've mulched the bed with mushroom compost, and it's about 1 inch of mushroom compost on the top there. So how much am I putting in? About that much. And this is the hoof and horn. So I put 2 capfuls of fish emulsion, 2 capfuls of seaweed meal in a 10 litre watering can, and I'm just putting a little bit in each hole. I'd put more water in than this if it was summer, but this ground is really well hydrated. So these are the kales that I'm putting in. These are all Tuscan kales, different varieties. Black Magic, Dazzling Blue, and Dazzling Blue, and just a standard Carvalho Nero. And these need very little preparation really. They're nice stocky plants. I don't need to take off any lower leaves or anything like that. They're just ready for planting now. I'll plant up to where those seed leaves are. You can leave the seed leaves on, you can take them off if you fancy it. So these are a touch deep, so I'll just put a little bit, backfill with a little bit of the compost that I took out when I cut these holes. So these seedlings are about 6 weeks old. I might go up to 8 weeks, but I certainly wouldn't go anywhere beyond that. Because these are being planted underneath this low cover, 6 weeks is fine, and the younger in a way the better when you're planting anything, I think. But yeah, young plants, they will need some protection. So if I was planting out in May, I'd probably plant out something that was 6 or 7 weeks old, a little bit bigger than these, maybe 2 inches taller, something like that, just a little bit stronger. Spent a little bit longer hardening off, because they are only going to go under a mesh cover to protect from the birds, so not from the wind. so they do need to be well hardened off, strong plants, whereas these haven't been hardened off at all. So 6 weeks to grow to the right size, maybe 2 weeks to harden off in May. So then I've dibbed the holes in here, 39 holes I think for some reason, and I've got 40 modules of radish to sow there. I'm pleased with these radish actually, they're nice and stocky. The last batch of radish that I put in, they were just a little bit leggy, but these are looking much better. So I'm really happy with those. The radish are a mix of French breakfast radish and cherry bell, and the radish are 3 weeks old, and as I said, the kale is 6 weeks old. Enough radish there to last us for a month, Debbie and I, and we do another tray for friends and family, so we do 2 trays a month. Looking great. So there we go, all covered up and ready to go. Beetroot will go in there in about 10 days time, and this cover came from this bed with the overwintered kales, and by the time these are finished, those new ones should be ready. So this is my asparagus bed, and it always frustrates me that there's so much space in it up until when we leave the asparagus to grow on to its full height. But while we're actually harvesting it, there's loads of space, so I filled all that spare space with spring onions. And the timing is just perfect because all these spring onions will be harvested before the asparagus harvest finishes. I just dibbed holes, popped them in, about 6 seeds to a module there, and I'll just put a bit of fleece over the top of them. Might even get a bit of an early asparagus crop as well with that extra warmth on the fleece. So I've just cleared the pak choy, and there was a little bit of salad rocket in there as well. That has all gone to seed, and I just popped in some nice lettuces in there. These are a maize, a lovely hearting lettuce. They should be ready about late May, I should think. I'm really looking forward to hearting lettuces at the moment. I love that crunch in the salad mix. Got some more lettuces over there, almost ready for harvest. So I'm scouring the plot for interplanting opportunities, and this one is glaring at me because these purple sprouting broccoli are not coming out of the ground until about May time. The bed's not being replanted until June with beetroot for storage, so that's a long time. And I noticed that the ground is getting loads of sunlight, so what I've done is I've popped field beans in here. I just happen to have a bag of field beans left over from my October planting. Planted them about, I don't know what that is, 4 inches, 5 inches apart. 120 field bean plants in there, and now I'm going to cover these with mushroom compost. It's just the easiest way I find to plant a large number of beans, is to just drop the beans on the soil and cover them with compost. Now I will initially harvest these for the leaves, ideally the growing tips. I'll show you that in a minute. I might leave some to mature so I can harvest the beans for next year's seed crop. And then I've basically got the same concept down here, but I'm going to put spinach in this bed. It gets even more sun because of all the cauliflowers being cleared here, and I don't have any spinach ready yet, so I've just sowed it. So in about a month's time this will be full of spinach, and that'll be harvested in June, and then the beetroot will follow it straight away. So here's an example of a field bean. I just take that whole growing tip out there, and we use that like a spinach. People use it in salads. It's really lovely. and the roots will just throw up another shoot. And as an example here, new shoots coming up at the bottom. So there's plenty of new growth, especially in spring. You know, they'll really aggressively just keep on throwing up new shoots. You just keep pinching them out. They throw up more shoots, you just keep pinching them out. After the first one, you'll find probably 2 or 3 come up. The thing is, pinch one out, let 2 go on, pinch another one out, you know, etc. Always leave a little bit of leaf growth on them. So the final bit of space that I've got to fill up today is the floor in this little mini greenhouse. Now I'm not actually going to need the shelves in here for a few weeks, but I can actually still get inside here even with the potatoes in. So yes, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fill these up with my early potatoes. Now, my super early potatoes are in the conservatory at home, and they're going to be ready for harvest in early April. These are going to be a little bit later, so the sort of late April and early May. There's a few varieties that will give me that succession. I think there's Swift, Charlotte and Arran Pilot. The Charlotte will go in the biggest pots, Swift in the smallest pots, Arran Pilot in the middle pots. So let's get those in. So there we go, that's all finished. Swifts will come first, and I think, I mean, it depends, 70 days probably at this time of year, maybe a little bit longer, but let's say 70 days for those. So just a little over 2 months, which means all of March, all of April, so early May. Arran Pilot, mid-May. Charlottes, early June. I've only put 2 Charlottes in here, 2 Arran Pilots, 2 Swifts, so they should be good sized potatoes. These are probably going to be baking potato size. Maybe those will be baking potato size. So these will be my second batch of baking potatoes if all goes to plan. The first batch should come sometime in April, maybe early May. A lot depends on the weather. It's not just about the length of the age of the potatoes. So, and then my final batch of early baking potatoes will come in July. So I've got a guide to all this, little ebook, which if you want to have a look at that, that's linked in the description. Goes all the way through how to grow early general purpose potatoes, early salad potatoes, early baking potatoes. So we're still verging on frosts at night, so I just put this little bit of bubble wrap around the front here, because when I close the door, there's nice big gaps in the side there, and that bit of fleece should keep everything nice and frost free. So there we go. Now I think I've only got probably 2 more beds to plant now, and most of that is spring planting as well, but it's going to be a few days before I do those, so I'll draw this to a close now. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen, Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.